Gardner's is honored to be Lancaster's favorite mattress store 15 years in a row, voted a favorite every year since 2010. Every day of the year we work to be your favorite mattress store, and we earn the right to be a favorite with you, our next customer, with the way we help you wake up happy and find the right fit. And remember, it's not a mattress until you wake up happy on one from Gardner's Mattress & More. Double Deal Savings Events happening now.
You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Bulldog Hour. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and here with me, as always, is my co-host, Justin Raffoff. But Justin and I are not alone this evening. We're welcoming back for, I don't know, we got to be pushing a handful of times here now, Paul. One of our, I'll call him a sitting guest. You know, he's always welcome on the program. Paul Roberts, SB Sports, BerksSportsReport.com. Unfortunately, gentlemen, we don't get to talk about a Wilson victory tonight, which I know, just kind of starts things off on the wrong foot for us. Everyone's a little bit gloomy, downtrodden, but we've got a job to do. We're here with it.
Heads are falling
We're
off.
here with a real journalist, so we got to keep it kosher. But no, Paul, thank you so much. Justin, actually, yeah, we didn't realize that he went to the Newhouse School. Did you know that?
I did not. No.
That is false.
That is false. Yeah, we're just lying. Fake news. That's right.
Right, exactly.
So, but no, Paul, thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Yeah, sure thing. I wish we were talking about a win. The good news, season isn't over. Still in the District 3 playoffs. So there's more football to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk all about that. But first, we do want to thank the sponsors here for the Bulldog Hour's 11th season, starting with my dad and sister at Mays Sandwich Shop. OrderMays.com is the website, and check us out at 2525 Penn Avenue in West Lawn. Also, you heard the advertisement to start the show, but Gardner's Mattress & More, Jeff Janakovo, and the gang in Lancaster, Gardner'sMattressandMore.com. Be sure to check them out near Park City. S&S Mechanical, Steve Simons. Check them out on the web at ssfirstmechanical.com. Local sinking spring vendor. Be sure to support them for all your heating and plumbing needs. Eric Weiser, realtor for Berkshire Hathaway Home Sale Realty. You can view his website at ericweiserhomes.com, and we thank Eric for his support this year on the Bulldog Hour. And last up here for us for season 11 of the presenting sponsors here is Mike Drago, MikeDragoSports.com. Check out the website for everything that Mike Drago and his group cover, including the association with LancasterOnline.com to cover everything you want in Berks, Lancaster, and Lebanon football coverage. A few more thank yous go out to the Miller family, Andy Herr, the Challenger family, and our two anonymous donors. Thank you all so much for sponsoring us here for the 11th season of the Bulldog Hour, which Justin and I will be back in 1 week, Sunday, November 2nd, same time, 6:30 p.m., and on that show, we will do a full deep dive into the District 3 6A playoffs. We'll have quick recaps of the games in 6A that occurred and how it finalizes the brackets for the quarterfinals. You know, we're going to talk about D3 playoffs tonight, but Wilson's not playing in the first round. So we got a week reprieve to rest, relax, and recover, but we'll be back in 1 week time to really dive into all the matchups. And obviously we know Wilson will be playing William Penn.
I was going to say, we're in that spot where we don't play next week, but we do know our opponent
Correct.
Next week, which is honestly kind of a nice spot in the sense that you know who you're going to play. Some of the other teams may have to wait a little bit to figure that out.
Yeah, so we will talk a little bit of playoffs tonight. We're not going to dive into the York preview unless Paul has some notes he'd like to drop on us. Justin and I will wait to talk much about William Penn until next week, but we will certainly entertain if Paul has some nuggets about about York William Penn that he'd like to throw at us here at the end. But up first, we got to talk about Game 10, which was Wilson hosting Manheim Township on senior night and green out. Unfortunately for the Bulldogs, came up a little bit short. 20-14 was the final, but you can't say Wilson didn't have chances or that they weren't in the game. It was a close, hard-fought battle. Unfortunately, just one too many mistakes for the Bulldogs to overcome. So, Paul, before we get to your highlights that you provided to us, why don't you hit us with your thoughts about the Wilson-Manheim Township game?
Well, penalties and turnovers. I mean, when you are -4 in turnover margin, it's shocking, really, that you have a chance to win. And then you throw in double-digit penalties for over 100 yards. I mean, it's really surprising with those two factors. Turnovers is the most important stat, whether it's high school, college, the NFL. And Wilson had 3 in the fourth quarter, but still had a chance to win. I mean, you're down at the 9-yard line. Then, unfortunately, you have a fumble. You lose 12 yards there. You have another penalty, and you go from the 9 to the 31 just like that. And it really changed the whole sequence of that last drive. So too many mistakes. And again, this is week 10, and the penalties really aren't new. You know, looking at the season stats, Wilson's had 79 penalties in 10 games. Even with my lowly Syracuse degree, I can do that math. It's 7.9 a game. So 8 penalties a game is not good. And also, Manheim Township declined at least 3. So really, you're talking about 14 penalties. In a section championship game against a quality opponent, you can't do that, and you can't turn it over. And I talked to Coach Doms after the game and then a couple of the assistants. And to their credit, they really weren't making excuses about, the penalties and things like that. It was just too many mistakes. The opportunities were there. On the bright side, the defense played well. And I was just looking back at my drive chart. Manheim Township started at Wilson's 32 after an interception, only got 3 points. They started at Wilson's 35, got no points when Brownback, who again had a spectacular game, I think it was 16 combined tackles, he made that stop on 4th and 1, so they got nothing there. And then they had another drive that started at Wilson's 25 that only resulted in a field goal, which made it 20-14. So, Wilson outgained Manheim Township. Wilson had more first downs than Manheim Township. Township was under 4 yards a carry in the running game. Talked about the job Brownback did. I mean, the defense was fine. You can't have all the penalties. You can't have the turnovers.
No, you're 100% right. And Justin and I have said that a few times. I think going back to the Nazareth recap, we talked about, what causes good teams to lose games. It's turnovers, penalties, and giving up big plays. And we saw that all evening Friday, at least with the penalties and turnovers part. Honestly, there weren't a ton of big plays against Wilson. I think the longest pass was, 33 yards, and that was a broken coverage. But like you said, I thought the defense played pretty well. They had their back against the wall a few times and kind of bent but didn't break more often than not. And Justin and I have said it many times over the last decade, if the defense allows 20 points or fewer, we expect to win the game. That's just what we expect to happen, and just couldn't get quite enough points on the board. But I want to go back to the officiating and the penalties, because we talked about it a few times. I know we were talking about it after the Hempfield game a few weeks ago. I think that game was 13 accepted penalties against Wilson. Some of those we were very adamant that they were poor calls. I don't know that I can say that much about Friday night. The holding, every time there'd be a holding penalty, and I just discussed it. Like, how can they keep calling these penalties? And I look on my camera and I go, oh, that's why they keep calling the penalties, because they are holding them. So it's frustrating that it happens, but they felt like they were legitimate. There were a few non-calls that I thought were iffy, And we're going to watch one of them. Actually, I don't know if I pulled it in the highlight or not, but there was one that I thought live watching the play, and I believe it led to a touchdown a few plays later. I thought for sure it was offensive pass interference, but you sent me your angle of the highlight, and as I'm watching it, and you said it looked like it did not look that way upon second review. I actually talked with some of the assistant coaches today, and they agreed. Live, it looked worse than watching it on different angles, whether it was the huddle feed or the sports feeds from you, Paul. They had no problem with the non-call.
Yeah, that was one of the deep balls to Dixon, who did have a great game. 8 catches, 111 yards for him. But that really, I thought the same thing. That's the one nice thing about being on the sideline and getting the videos is it does give me an opportunity at times to go back and look. And when I did, to me, that was just hand fighting. I didn't think there was anything egregious there. It was a 50-50 ball. The corner was there in position. When I watched it live, I thought that's going to be intercepted because it was thrown out in front of him. And I think Carpenter was kind of waiting there for it. And Dixon just ripped the ball away. And that put them down at the 3-yard line. And they did get a touchdown after that. I did find it interesting. I was at Conestoga Valley a week ago, and it was the same officiating crew that did the Exeter-Conestoga Valley game, where there were 6 holding calls against Exeter, including one on a 74-yard touchdown run late in the third quarter that would have made the game 24-7 in favor of Exeter. It would have made it a 3-score game. I've watched that video more than once. I actually sent it to a buddy of mine who happened to play several years in the NFL and played offensive line in Ross Tucker, who I think knows a little bit about blocking. And Ross looked at the clip and said that was an awesome block. He also said at the NFL level, officials are taught it has to be clear and obvious to make a holding call. So that's just one little nugget out there. Sometimes in basketball, I think you see certain officials or crews and they call a game tight. Others don't. Others let them play. And you just have to adjust. Mm-hmm. This crew apparently is one that's going to be very tight when it comes to holding.
As I texted Justin during the game, I know that at least one official on the Wilson sideline was definitely a letter of the law interpreter of everything, whereas it's very black and white. There's no gray area. If I see this is what I'm taught, this is what I'm calling.
I love to tease Joe with whenever I want, just switching around, be like, oh, so you're a spirit of the law kind of guy, or oh, you're a letter of the law kind of guy, but like just to annoy him.
And I don't bring this up with regard to the holding calls. It was actually everything else going on. He was a stickler about everything. You know, the appearance of the players, what they can and cannot wear the pad levels, the jerseys, the tucked, the rolls, the eye black, the sidelines. Like sideline warnings, I completely get it. You cannot get in the way of the officials. But there was no grace whatsoever with any, and it wasn't just with the coaches, the players. It was also all over the ball boys the entire time about being too close to the field and not being in his hit. Like it was very, and like you said, you have to adjust. Yeah. You can't complain about it and can't place blame on it. You have to react to them.
Mm-hmm. I thought what happened to Exeter to me was a little bit more concerning than what I saw with the Wilson game. Oh. But again, when you make so many other mistakes, and Exeter in that game, if they recover an onside kick,
sure,
they probably win the game.
Yep.
If their defense gets one stop on the last drive, they gave Sawyer Espinshade a shot, and he can spin the ball. I mean, he doesn't have great size, which is why he doesn't have the college offers that some people may think he should have. But accuracy, man, is that good. And Muhlenberg fans saw that this past Friday night. But when so many other things are happening that you do have control over, it's tough to. I know with fans. when I did my talk radio show, I used to refer to myself as the chief of the excuse police, because it seems any time when teams lose, the fans immediately point to officials rather than look in the mirror at what we did wrong or what we could have been better at.
You're not going to win too many games at -4 in the turnover
Yeah.
department.
Right.
So,
Well, yeah, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I just like it's tough, but like a couple things, like you said, and I can't speak to the Exeter situation just because most Friday nights I'm busy somewhere else. But like it's disappointing and it's frustrating, but it's also not a one-off. You know, like it's not a one-off. It's not even the most penalties we've had in a game. Now, again, maybe accepted penalties and
they don't keep track of
so like it's
flags thrown
track,
versus
like,
accepted.
When you're averaging 8 a game, like this isn't an anomaly, right? So like that makes it tough. But also, and this was we don't do interviews when we don't win. We didn't do interviews, but like we certainly talked to some of the guys.
We did
afterwards, and like I think the sentiment was also there. It's really tough to digest the loss when you didn't play your best. You know, and I kind of talk it now. This is an extreme example, but you know, it's hard to argue we played our best. But last year in the Harrisburg game, in the district championship game, it didn't matter.
Just overmatched,
right. It just doesn't matter, right? But like,
this game
is one where like you feel like, man, if we play anywhere close to our best, maybe the outcome's different. Who knows? Because you know it's give and take, and what happens, you know, is a domino effect. But like, it's hard when there are so many what ifs, and some of those people will harp on penalties, but there are a lot of what ifs that we had control over, and just didn't get it done.
Yeah,
and that happens. Like that happens sometimes in sports, and honestly, it reminded me a lot, just the opposite of the game last year, like at Manheim Township, like.
Right, they were hit with how many unsportsmanlike conduct?
They had a lot of penalties, like, you know, seeming like now this game was a lot closer. Like you know, this game was a lot closer. And honestly, when we get it, I was like, and we start to drive, I'm like, we're gonna win this game 21-20. Like I thought, like, man, we did not play that well, but we're gonna win this game 21-20. They can't stop us right now. We're gonna win.
And that drive featured, even before things fell off near the end, that drive featured a few penalties that they overcame.
Yep.
Yeah, there are three on the drive that I recall.
Yeah.
So
and that drive started at their 8.
Yeah.
And they got all the way to the 9-yard line. It was a good drive, and then the fumble penalty. Now you're back at the 31.
Unraveled. Yeah, it unraveled quickly. Right. So the last thing I want to bring out with regards to officials, and I just want to get, Paul, your take on this, because it's something that I fight with. I fought with it at Hempfield a few weeks ago. We know that a crew is a stickler for certain things, and what people, and this comes from a direct comment from someone watching. How do you explain the discrepancy in the number of calls between the teams? Is it just one team was able to adjust and the other didn't? I think that's what people are super focused about. It's not so much that Wilson was penalized so much, is that you telling me that in these other games the other team wasn't committing penalties as well? Well,
the holding one is always kind of an issue for me, because coaches will say you can call it every play. So in the Exeter game, for example, 6 of them, and Exeter, by the way, has a tremendous offensive line. I mean, they are very good, and it's kind of a nasty group too. I'm not sure how many of Wilson's were holding. I'd say it might have been a handful. Now, if you look at accepted penalties, Wilson had 11, Township had 8.
Yeah, it wasn't as egregious this game.
Yeah.
It was closer in terms of accepted penalties,
right.
Yes.
Right.
But I know when we were talking about the Hempfield game, I think it was like 11-4.
To me, one of the things that kind of stood out, and again, kind of Paul up like the basketball wheelhouse here, like to me, the style of the game from the offensive was a little different. Wilson was kind of like, let's get it outside, let's get it outside. It's kind of like, you know, you're going to sit out there and shoot threes all the time. You're not going to draw the fouls, as opposed to the team that's literally running up the middle. Like Township's run game was up the middle. you're not going to get a ton
Not
of
as many hold calls there.
Just in my mind, and I don't know, but I'm just thinking in my mind.
Right, because you
you're
have
not
linemen
gonna
going
get as many-
forward and not trying to stretch
Yeah,
out
right,
to the
not,
side.
and not
Right.
keep that contain on the guy on the end or any of that
Sure.
stuff. The linemen are trying to crash, not like it's just a different.
Yeah. If
Style.
you're running traps and things like that, it's much different than if you're running outside zone.
Right.
And people are trying to stretch to get out there and things like that.
that's-
Basketball, I often laugh at fans who, when one team's full court pressing and the other's playing 2-3 zone, and they scream about, well, they have 8 fouls and we have like one,
Right.
like
Style of play
Right,
matters.
You literally
You're
are bodying
watching
a
the
guy
game.
75 feet from the basket.
Yeah.
Like, you're right. You shouldn't have fouled him 80 feet from the basket.
Yeah, and I certainly, and I want to put this out there, and I know none of us are doing this. We're not making excuses. We're not
No.
saying Wilson lost this game because of the officials. We're just discussing it because it's a topic that was clearly going to come up.
Yeah, sure.
It had to. One, it had to be addressed because we know the fans are always on that all the time. But honestly, I said, I don't know how many of those felt like bogus calls. I looked back at videos and pictures, and I'm like, yeah, I can see why they made that call.
Right.
I understand. I said some of the non-calls, and someone else brought this up. I actually think it's your dad, Justin. The same thing I said. How do you not throw a flag when that guy took 2 steps and dove on
and
Mason
jumped
when he
on
had
Mason.
recovered that
Right,
fumble?
that-
Like, that's egregious to me. You say, oh, well, he's playing. He playing to the whistle. Then you didn't blow the whistle soon enough. Like, that's official malpractice to allow him to do that. The quarterback laying in the NFL, the guy probably would have been attacked by the opponent's lineman for doing what he did. And how do you not throw the flag there? That to me was wild to not see a flag thrown there.
And then another one that I have to point out, after Wilson scores,
Yeah.
and on an extra point, to have 2 personal fouls, I don't know if there's a number of push-ups or a number of sprints a player should have to do for that. And when you think about Wilson football, you think about discipline, right? I mean, toughness, blue collar attitude.
Opposite of that.
That was kind of the foundation of this program. Like Gursky, Ritz, Jerry Slemmer. Like to put your team in that situation after you just scored a touchdown, that made it 17-14. And then they kicked off from their own 13-yard line. Yeah. You got a big punt return. And next thing you know, Township's back at your 25. Right. Those are the type of penalty. We're not talking about holding here or, questionable. Those are things you absolutely can control.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And a microcosm kind of the game was Preston booted that ball.
Yeah.
It was probably his longest kickoff
that
I've seen him do. And we had a chance to tackle the guy close to the 50, and we don't.
Yeah.
And,
kickoff coverage was subpar,
then they end up at
unfortunately.
the 30-yard line or so. It was one of those where it's yes, the penalty was bad. We had a chance to maybe minimize the effect the penalty actually has, but we couldn't quite do it. And then it ends up being 3 points. It was just, I felt like that was the whole thing. The penalties didn't help, but we had a chance to make plays that just almost happened. Right. It was an almost kind of game.
Paul brings up a great point, though. Those are the ones that has nothing to do with the official.
Right.
Yeah. That is discipline. That's respect for your opponent. Those are incredibly costly in a game that close, razor thin margins both way, to lose 30 yards of field position and give them a chance for points without them having to do all that much. It's just unacceptable. So
yeah, let's say they don't get that field goal. It's 17-14. Now, on the last drive, a field goal ties the game.
Yeah.
You go to overtime. You don't need to get a touchdown. It changes a lot.
It changed how you call the entire drive.
And the first interception was a short pass that was behind Greer that got tipped and picked. The second, forget about the last one. I don't care about the last. There was 5 seconds left.
Right,
You're just throwing it up, But the one before, they're playing prevent. They only rushed 2, maybe 3. I think it was 2. So there's all day in the pocket. You scramble left. Rule number 1, you don't throw late across the middle of the field. That's like a universal no-no. And that's what happened. threw late across the middle of the field, and it was picked off. So those are things that can be controlled.
Yeah, and if they want to continue on in the playoffs, they're going to have to control those things. Technique and fundamental. Tackling was subpar in the first half. It got better in the second half. I think they really tightened things up. But and this is coming directly not only from us watching the game, but from talking with other coaches about the game itself. So do your job. Make sure you're performing at the highest level. Right. Take care of what you can, and we'll be okay.
Yeah, time of possession was a big thing too. So it ended up 28-38 for Manheim Township.
That was a bigger discrepancy in the first
yeah.
half, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was huge. And remember, these are 12-minute quarters, so
right.
it's a 48-minute game. It's difficult to score when
you don't have the ball.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I mean, that we're going to cut off the gloominess and talking about like the bad. We want to talk about the good too, and there were some good things. And Paul, you provided us with a few highlights, so we're going to take a look at this play. First one up here. Let's see what we got. Oh, this is the big one. This is the getting on the scoreboard. That's Mike Glover. Look at that, running right to you, Paul.
Well, you know what? I joke often about getting hit on the sidelines, which I haven't in 3 years now at doing that. And a lot of the kids I'm probably as big or bigger than. Not Mike Glover.
Mike, no.
So when he starts barreling, I'm like, please just take it to the house. Nobody push him near me because like that could be straight to the ER.
Yeah, and that was so initially I thought it was a handoff.
Yeah, so did
but
I.
It actually was a shovel pass.
Right.
Yeah. They faked the handoff.
Really well
right.
executed.
Yes.
Really nice play design, and you can tell someone that brings it 100% at all times. It's Mike Glover. I mean, we saw him just a couple weeks ago. Tackling the guys from behind. I think that was against Penn Manor.
Yes.
He was the guy out racing people who you would think would be faster, and Mike is the one making the tackles. So Glover showing his speed here on this touchdown reception, technically.
Yeah. Quarterback's best friend.
Right, the shovel pass,
just got 76 yards.
Yeah, on a half-yard little flick, right? Yeah.
The other thing that I love about Mike Glover, he doesn't say two words. And on a serious note, going back to things you can control and unsportsmanlike conduct, and this is not a Wilson point, so I don't want people to think I'm just, I'm talking about Wilson. The language I hear on sidelines now, and being around high school athletes and high school kids in general, as much as I am with covering, field hockey, soccer, volleyball, all these other sports, the language is atrocious. I mean, I don't even want to think what would have happened to me as a kid if I would have used some of the words and my parents would have been around to hear it or had someone. You just didn't do it. I mean, and now it's like it's common practice. I don't get it. Maybe the parents are more concerned with being friends with their kids. Maybe the kids have a lack of respect for authority and for their coaches and teachers and officials. I don't understand what changed. I mean, I'm older now, but I'm not that old. So that's one. Glover and Brownback. If you're a young Wilson football player, watch those two kids. Not just how they play, but how they act too. I talked earlier about like what this program was founded on, and what people always talked about Wilson was that blue collar brand of football, that the toughness. It wasn't about let me post my highlights 20 seconds after we lost. It wasn't about TikTok videos and things like that. It was just going out and beating somebody, and then moving on to the next week.
Getting ready for the next one.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, so those are two examples of guys who are still doing things the right way,
the old school way. Yeah, things certainly have changed over the last 30 years, I'd say, but. Yeah, I mean, I understand. I know where you're coming from.
Back to the highlights.
I'm on the sidelines. I'm on the sidelines
Yeah.
too, and I can control it to the best of my ability previously at West Middle School and now at Southern Middle School. It's an uphill battle. It's an uphill battle. So, so let's get back to the highlights and get to Wilson highlight number 2 from the game on Friday night against Manheim Township. Again, this one from Paul Roberts, SV Sports. And this is Monty Greer's single rush of the night going for a touchdown. And he barreled in for that one. He had to fight for it the last few yards. He had quite a few blue streaks on him. Nice to see a split backfield with him and Corell Akings out there, and Akings helping to lead the charge to help Monty get in for the score.
The carries were interesting. Akins, obviously a 3-year starter, their leading rusher, 8 carries for him. Glover had 7, who's really a tight end. Ethan Harding ended up with 6. Mason ran 4 times, but it was a little surprising to me to see so few carries for Corell. But again, he also, I saw him out there at corner too. So
and I think
two-way player
too was so tough because, as we've established earlier in the show, it was very hard to establish any kind of rhythm on any kind of plays because
1st and 20 is not good.
Right. Like there aren't 2nd and 12 and stuff. It's just not a lot of handoffs necessarily to be had. And like I said, we actually ran it probably more than I anticipated. And honestly, we're running it better as the game went on. Kind of collectively, everyone was kind of getting their chances and doing well. But it just that makes it 1st and 20 makes it hard.
Yeah, there's not a lot of plays in the playbook for anything 1st and 20.
Well, and I wonder, again, we talk about some of the, not just the hidden yards that come with, so a 10-yard penalty, but there might have been a 10-yard gain. So that in reality, it's a 20-yard penalty. I don't know that stuff. Yeah. But you also end up with, well, I wonder what the stats look like because most of the holds were on running plays. Were some of those negated? How does that affect the distribution? I have no idea. I'm just wondering, were there maybe 4 or 5?
I'm sure we can tell Joe Peterson we'd like him to track more and more things for us. We would like to know total penalties, including those that were not accepted. We'd like to know how much yardage was wiped away on a penalty. We can put things together and we'll figure it out.
We'll come up with a list.
Yeah, we'll let Joe know.
I mean, we have a bye week.
Sure, I'm sure he has time to figure out. Have you ever seen the computer and the program he uses for the stats?
Yes, it's basically the first laptop.
Yeah, but it's awesome. When I was doing the broadcast for the Hempfield game, I was right next to him. A drive happened, he would point at his screen. I'd take a picture, and I'd have all the drive information, so I could just start piping it into the broadcast.
At Reading last year, I was in the same. Which, by the way, all right, best press box setup of any high school game I've ever been to. Probably rivals some of those Texas situations.
Texas high school stadiums, right?
Yeah. But it was, it's so nice. But I was in the same box that they were, so I got a good look. Because normally at an away game, I'm either outside or up top. But
if you would like to visit the Shirk Stadium press box again, Justin, next Sunday, Van Reed and Lincoln Park are squaring off in the BICYFL Midget Championship game. So, an all-Wilson championship game. Right, yeah. They're in there somewhere.
Game of the century.
Right, so Wilson Van Reed Midgets squaring off again in the championship game. So if you'd like to go to Albright and check out that press box, I'm sure they would welcome you. Tell Joe you're going to keep stats for it. Maybe he'll let you use the stats program. And then you can tinker with it and tell him, don't worry, I fixed it. So, all right, now the last highlight that we have from Paul here is from that last Wilson offensive drive, or the long one, the big one that they were trying to score to tie or take the lead with the extra point. And it was after, again, I think it was after a Wilson penalty this play happened. It was a need to have it. You needed to get some yardage on this next play following a penalty. And thankfully, Mason Young found Damian Greer. Let's take a look. So it's a really nice play. It's drawn up nicely and it was executed perfectly. I believe was that a trips formation that Damian came out of? I can't see quite on the video the way it was drawn up, but Damian goes down on a wheel, makes a really nice catch. Mason put it where only Damian could get to it, and that helped extend the drive. And we unfortunately know how the drive ended, but that was a must get. I'm trying to look at the scoreboard here, Paul. I think actually, did it say 1st and 20?
Yeah. It was a 25-yard pass. It took them to the 45, so it was a gigantic play.
Yeah, so very nicely done.
And he's only a sophomore.
Yes, he is. Yep. Well, Justin and I have already had discussions about the underclassmen.
Oh, there's a
playing
lot
key
coming
roles.
back.
Yeah.
If you want another bright spot, I mean, there's a lot coming back.
So, well, we appreciate you providing those 3 highlights for us from the game. And we already talked about our player of the game, the person. Haven't announced who it was, but you alluded to it. I don't know where you got your stats for Mr. E.J. Brownback, but on Joe's stats, he had 13 and a half total tackles.
So this is
how do you count total tackles?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I combined the two. I know
the
how
assists.
Right. Joe gives a half for those. I add them up, and I don't know what the right way is. I know a lot of the other schools that I deal with, they combine the two. So, for example, if you had 10 solos and 5 assists, they'll say you had 15 tackles, and that's what I usually do. But
that would be the discrepancy then, because I know that Joe, if you assisted on a tackle, if you were and one or more other people, you get a half tackle for that. If you completely do it yourself, you get a full tackle.
I'm a glass half full type of guy.
See, Justin and I are glass half empty, so... Well, we're sports fans. What do you expect?
I do have to shout out Joe, though, because having those stats, halftime, post-game, for someone like me is invaluable. Because I'm trying to do a zillion other things, whether it's live tweet, get the videos, follow all the other 12 games that are going on. So to have that statistical breakdown like right at your fingertips immediately is awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And after wins, when Justin and I do our interviews, we're usually getting ready to go, and I see Phil walk down and he hands us those crisp papers ready to go.
It's like a winning Powerball ticket.
I do have a new respect for Joe and you, Paul. Like, man, a couple weeks ago at Hempfield, when Joey was on the broadcast call, I had to do the interview, and I am like, all right, here we go. And then I'm just like, wait, what am I gonna say? Because normally all I have to say is we're good. Oh man, I'm just like fumbling over my words. It was
the problem I have with it, and I'm sure Paul, you've been there in the past, but you've been doing it for so long. You're a seasoned pro at it, but I get lost in my head thinking, what do I want to ask next? But then I'm not listening to what they're saying. Like, I'll ask Coach Doms a question, and I'll be like, well, I want to ask this next. But then I'll hear him say something, and they'll be like, oh, I want to ask him more about that. And then I'll forget what I was going to ask after. Oh,
right. That's just really the sign of a great interviewer is when someone, I mean, you can have your scripted questions, but when someone says something that's like, whoa, like maybe they gave you a detail about something X's and O's wise, or maybe someone got injured or something and they just revealed that, to be able to pivot then and then double up on that's really good. But for the young reporters out there, Wilson does a great job giving students, opportunity to do that. How and why? When you ask yes and no questions, you know what you get, guys?
Yes and no answers.
Bingo. So when you ask how and why, you can't say, why was the running game so successful? And someone say yes. Okay? So how and why is
Was
very
the running
important.
game successful? Yes, it was.
Right.
No. Well, you almost kind of, it's not like, sort of like leading the way. You're like, this is how I want you to answer. I need you to expand on it. I don't want one word.
Right. And ask a question too. Sometimes I hear people doing interviews and they'll say, just going back to that example, your running game was great tonight. and then point the microphone at him. Well,
Right.
what's the question?
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, so ask a question. And if it starts with how or why, you're probably in good shape.
You're good to go. So
Little journalism 101.
there you go.
Yeah.
All right, so E.J. Brownback is our player of the game. He's been the player of the game before. He just he jumped off the stats page at me. I know you mentioned with your tally, he had 16 tackles. It matches up perfectly with what Joe had because he had 11 solo and then 5 assisted. 2 of them were for loss. He seemed just swarmed over the ball, and I did get to talk
Including
with
that 4th and 1.
right.
Yeah, that was huge. I mean, because it was 10-0 then. They scored that 17-0.
You're in trouble.
Big trouble.
Yeah, you're in big trouble. And I talked with Ernie Wolbert today, and without me even bringing him up, he signaled out how good EJ played in the game. So that reinforced what Justin and I had decided to go with Brownback for this award. It's always tough after a loss of who do you pick out, but I feel like EJ played phenomenally. And hey, only a junior, get another year of Brownback. And younger brother coming up to join him next year. So, yeah, EJ is our player of the game.
Great wrestler, too.
Absolutely. So
I did joke with him on the sideline at one point during the game. I said, do you think you can get a pick 6 tonight? Might need it.
well, I was joking with him earlier. I was like, you're off trend here. Where we've gotten away. You had been every other game here with the pick 6. It's been a little bit now. The coaches joke all the time, though, about how the linebackers are the ones getting all these pick 6s. DBs haven't been getting their hand on the ball as much or having that opportunity. And I know Jaden Carpenter had the fumble recovery for the touchdown, but DBs, we're still waiting.
Hey, no time better than the present.
Than the playoffs. Yeah, when it really, really matters.
Right.
Probably would be a great time to have that one. So yeah, EJ's our player of the game, and that. Any final thoughts on Wilson Manheim Township?
It's obviously disappointing, and I had this conversation with some people today. It's disappointing because there are so many what ifs, right? And it stinks. And it's great that we have a bye because we can kind of nurse some of those wounds from 10 straight games and all that stuff. But I'm sure the guys will be ready to go out and play when that time comes. The great news is, and the big thing in my mind is they have a chance in 2 weeks to have that not be their last game. I'm talking specifically about seniors, but for this team, the 2025 team has a chance to make that not their last game at Gursky. In 2 weeks, they have a chance to go out on a high note at Gursky, continue their season, most likely on the road after that, but you never know, but most likely on the road after that. But they've got a chance to kind of finish on a high note and kind of put things together. And honestly, and I think a lot of people would agree, this team is so talented and has yet to play their best football. We were kind of trending in the right direction. It's hard to tell the 2 weeks leading into the Township game, but no one would agree or no one would argue that Friday night was their best. And I think to have another shot against good competition in York William Penn, to go out and play your best and see what happens when you play your best. Not too many times, and it's not a do-over. You don't get to do that over. Like the section championship, that one is settled. But you've got a chance to go out and not close the book on your season yet, and that's completely in your hands. And we've talked about we've got to control the things we can control, and if we do those and we play the way we can play, I have a confidence we've got some games left in us.
Yeah, I mean, we know we got one more for sure, and that is in just under 2 weeks. That'll be Friday, November 7th. Like I said, we'll preview specifically York William Penn ourselves then. But Paul, do you know anything about what York William Penn is going to bring to the table?
Running back's the big key.
Legend.
That's Central York.
That's Central York.
Central
You're right.
York. Anderson is his name. He's a 3-star, and he's going to Syracuse.
All right.
And he just had a monster game, but it was a head scratcher for me because they got blown out by Central York.
They did.
They lost by 40.
Yeah.
And he had 32 carries.
Whoa, that's a lot of carries in a blowout.
when you're behind.
When you're behind in a blowout,
Right.
yeah.
Now, he did have a career high. He ran for 294 yards
Oh, my goodness.
in this game. For the season, he's got just over 1,200. He averages about 7 yards a carry. And they played 9 games. He's got 21 touchdowns in 9 games. So that running back is going to be the focus, but they have a real head-scratching loss. Now, it was early in the year, but they lost to CD East, who only won 2 games this season, and I'm trying to figure that one out. But losing to Central York, there's no shame
Central
there.
York is, we've said it for a while, is the second best team in D3 6A and one of the top 6A teams in the state.
Right. Yeah, they have. It's all about their skill guys there. Brooklyn Nace is back at quarterback. He's committed to Old Dominion. 30 touchdowns, 2 interceptions this year. Not a bad ratio. He's thrown for 2,300 yards. You mentioned Joe Legend Johnson, who got time last year.
Got my York schools mixed up there.
But he's 950 yards this season on the ground, 8.5 a carry, so he can run the ball too. And then Brendan Smith is their top wide receiver.
Yep.
He's over 1,000 yards receiving this year. He's committed to Kent State. He also runs track, and I believe he has the school record in the 100 and the 200 for Central York. So
He still has a senior year to go.
he's got no, that's Smith I'm talking about, the wide receiver.
No, he means
Right,
track.
but I'm saying
he
for
still
track,
has
he
his
was
senior
still
year.
senior year,
You're right. Yeah. So those are some of their playmakers. And then one interesting tidbit is Ryan Brown, who's been a basketball first kid and was on their team that won the state title. He came out for football this year. He doesn't have a ton of catches. He did have a touchdown catch this past week against York High. So skill guys are very good. And they were at Wilson's 7-on-7 way back in the summer, which
Back
I've
in
talked
June,
about
yeah.
before is a phenomenal event, the caliber of teams that they get to come here to play. So the defense will be challenged if they end up playing
Well,
Central
I was going
York.
to say, if we're previewing Central York in
That's
a
a
couple
good
weeks,
thing.
that's a good thing. Yeah. So next week we will fully dive into our preview with York William Penn, the Bulldogs' opponent, at InstaShine Car Wash Field at John Gursky Stadium on Friday, November 7th. So next week's bye week, but we still have a show, like I mentioned, on November 2nd. But tonight, the last few minutes, I just wanted to kind of go through some Wilson District playoff history. I figured we'd have a few minutes here at the end. We can talk about that. And I know, Paul, you can probably touch on a few of these games that I'll bring up. But 2025 is the program's 33rd appearance in the 44 years of District 3 playoffs. The Bulldogs missed actually the first 2 years district playoffs happened. Wilson did not qualify in 82 and 83. They made it for the first time in 84, but they missed it in 88, 91, 93, 94, 98.
Also a lot different, should point out how many teams got it.
I was going to touch on
yes.
that. 98, 01, 03, and 05. And then I believe it was 06 when it fully expanded to, was it 8 or 16? I know they stepped up. They went to 8 teams, I think, first. I just don't know the exact year if it was 04 or 06. But then it went to 16 for a while. The only time in the modern expanded era was whether it was 8, 10, 12, 16 teams, depending on the classifications and whatnot. The only time Wilson has missed the playoffs, this comes with an asterisk, is 2020 because the field was shrunk down to 4 teams. And there was a lot of other stuff going on that we talked about then.
That's
and
a whole show
We're
in
not going to
itself.
revisit again.
Yeah.
So honestly, Wilson's only missed the playoffs in back-to-back years twice, and it was the first 2 years of district playoffs existence. State playoffs didn't even exist at that time.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then 93, 94. But other than that, Wilson's made the playoffs and continually pretty much since 2006 onward, except for the COVID year where things were really, really wacky. So the Bulldogs have 44 District 3 playoff wins. That's tied for 4th most across all teams in District 3. They've made the Final Four 28 times in their 33 appearances. And of course, that's inflated because for many years, it started with the semifinals. There were only 4 teams. But hey, your regular season was playoff games then. You had to,
Right, one loss could keep you out.
When my sophomore year in 2000, we went 9-1 and we're concerned we weren't going to make the playoffs. That's wild. There's some years when we had 16 teams and I'm like, I'm not sure all these teams need to be in there, but taking just 4 from District 3 was crazy.
Yeah, I think there might have been a Reading team with those great, the Bryant brothers and things like that.
I think it was 2000.
Yeah, that was 9-1 and did not get in.
I think it was 2000 because I'd have to go back and look, but I think it was the 2000 team because I believe us and Cedar Crest made it, and we had to play Cumberland Valley, who I'm getting ahead of myself. Cumberland Valley is going to come up a lot, so but I think it might have been that 2000 team. So. Wilson's made it to 12 finals, which is tied for 10th most across all the classifications. They have 7 championships, which is tied for 8th most across classifications. Bulldogs' last District 3 championship was in 2016. This is the 10th year of 6 classifications, and Wilson has made the 6A final 3 times, most recently just last year, and they made 9 appearances previously in the highest classification that was 4A leading up to all of this. So yeah, a lot of district playoff information to go, but someone that we used to see a bunch was Cumberland Valley. Cumberland Valley was Thorne and Wilson's side early and often in the 80s and 90s. The first Wilson playoff appearance was November 16th, 1984, and that was a 10-9 loss against the Eagles, and that game was played at Landis Stadium, home of Central Dauphin. But that was the Bulldogs' first crack at the district playoffs, coming up just short to Cumberland Valley. And that would be a theme, actually. Wilson playing Cumberland Valley has happened 14 times in the District 3 playoffs, and it is actually the most in District 3 playoff histories. A head-to-head matchup is Cumberland Valley-Wilson. The Eagles do lead that series 8-6 and have the most recent win in the series 2 seasons ago. A 6A quarterfinal at Cumberland Valley was won by an unfortunate score here, 20-14, as we just talked about losing to Manheim Township 20-14. But Paul, I don't know, were you at the infamous 1990 championship game at Hershey Park Stadium, the Fog Bowl?
I was not there, but it's funny you bring that up because just this week I was hanging out with Dean Carraris, who's obviously a great guy.
The guy who won the game
right.
for Wilson?
Yeah. I just happened to meet him. White Star Tours, it's a great company, and they sponsor my Berks Sports Report website. So I've
also sponsored the Bulldog Hour.
Yeah,
so, yes.
Good people. And we were talking about a lot of real funny stories, but when Dean talks about that, he always jokes that like there was no play because there was a sack that happened right before that game-winning touchdown pass. So he kind of thought that the game was going to end. Like Cumberland Valley was counting down the seconds, and Wilson was able to get the snap off. The funny thing to me is he ran like an out and up. Now, here's the question. Why on God's green earth would anyone bite on the out when it's the final seconds and they need a touchdown to win? But Cumberland Valley, they bit on that, and Dean made the catch, and he got drilled, and he hung on to the football. But it was, Chris Adams obviously threw the pass, and I just did an interview with his daughter, who's going to Penn State for field hockey. Macy and her sister Sydney is going to be really, really good too. She's only a 10th grader. But it's funny you bring up the Fog Bowl because I just was hanging out with Dean. But obviously that's one of the biggest games in the history of the program, which has had a lot of big games. And John Ritchie, I believe, was a sophomore.
He was
on that
because
team.
they won the state championship 2 years later, when he was a senior in 1992, which also comes up because Wilson actually hung in with that Cumberland Valley team that would go on to win the state championship in 1992, a 4A semifinal. Wilson falls to Cumberland Valley. Get this, 20-14.
Oh,
so
man.
this is completely tangential, but linked to everything we just talked about. You talked about Kraris and family. Just hours ago, they renamed a hall after the Kraris family
really?
Yeah, I
at
saw that.
Albright
I saw that.
College. So, yeah,
Great.
so congratulations to the family. Very familiar with Wilson football and connected to Berks County sports. And I
Sure.
did see that pop up on my Facebook feed. Kraris and Hunsaker families. Everyone was in attendance for this the great honor. So congratulations.
I graduated with Marisa, and we just had a reunion. So, which I think made a lot of us feel really old. And now I'm covering like all of their kids and stuff, and their kids are, in college now, and it's like, man, like
So
I have 1 foot in the dirt here or what?
well, Kraris Hall was dedicated in honor of the lifelong generosity of a distinguished alumnus Chris Kraris, class of 1969, and his beloved wife, the late Anne Kraris. So yeah, I saw that pop up, and the name comes up as you're discussing the Fog Bowl and their support of you and us over the years. So definitely wanted to extend our congratulations out to them. But
Dynamite segue.
so that's it for the playoff history. But Paul, we also have not to look ahead. We're still in 2025 season. We've got a playoff game, but there's this weird bye week in between. So I think it is important to touch on the future of Wilson football, too. And that comes down to a new 2-year cycle begins in 2026 and carries into 2027. And section realignment, not a lot happening.
No, not at all. I'm shocked, though, at how underreported this story has been. People get caught up a lot in stats and numbers and things like that. I try to look for what are the big stories, and I really haven't seen this mentioned anywhere else. But it is official now, and I think last time I was on with you guys, I said, hey, a lot of people are talking about 4 sections, easy, like press the brakes
Yes.
there, because
Yeah.
what I was hearing was that was not going to happen.
Well,
and it did not
you
happen.
nailed
Right.
that.
In the spring and early summer, I was hearing, we're likely going to 4 sections. And then when we had you on, was it in August or September? Whenever you were on last when we talked about it, and I don't know if we made it to air with it, but we were discussing it. You were like, I don't think it's going to happen.
No, we mentioned it on air.
Okay.
I remember
Okay.
it. Yeah. Was it a week before
Was
the
it
season or 2?
You were on for the preview. I think it was in August, mid-August, like after because we were recapping the scrimmage and previewing the whole season. So that's when it was. It would have
Yes,
been
yes.
like August, like 17th or 18th, right after the scrimmage,
Yes.
the day after the
Yep,
scrimmage.
yeah,
Yeah,
that was
and
it.
you were the first one that I heard say, I don't know that they're going to get the votes. I think there's too many coaches that are going to want to keep it at 5, which I think is the wrong move, but whatever, they're staying at 5, and honestly, there's very little changes in terms of where they're at this current 2-year cycle versus next year. The only one being Twin Valley and Conrad Weiser are swapping spots.
Right. Twin Valley goes from 4 to Section 3, and Conrad Weiser goes from Section 3 to Section 4. Those are the only 2 teams that are shifting. What is noteworthy, though, is the crossover games now. And for Wilson, Section 1 teams will play the teams from Division 1 of the York Adams League.
Yes.
And the matchups are set. And for next year, Central York will come to Wilson. And obviously that is, that's a matchup that people are going to circle. I'm sure there'll be a lot of media coverage there. Those are 2 of the perennial powers in District 3 at the 6A level. So that'll be week 9. It'll be Central York at Wilson.
So that'd be Friday, October 23rd.
Okay. I'll just run down the other matchups real quick. Reading will be at Southwestern.
That's a hike.
Yeah, that's a fun bus trip there. Manheim Township will be at York High. That's a week 6 game. Week 8 will be Dallastown at Cedar Crest. Week 5, the weeks are all over the place here. Week 5, Hempfield at Spring Grove. Week 4, Red Lion at McCaskey. And then week 10, Penn Manor's at New Oxford, which is kind of an odd matchup to end.
New
end the
Oxford
season.
back-to-back undefeated seasons.
I was gonna say they're the 1 seed in 5A this year.
Yeah, they're in 5A.
So they must have struggled before the last 2 years because it took 4 years of like winning percentage, right? That's how they adjusted or figured out who was playing who. Isn't that how they did it? Was it 4 years?
Well, the other thing I thought was interesting is New Oxford this year is in the second division.
Okay, they're moving up to 1 though.
They must be.
Apparently.
Yeah, because they're playing Penn Manor. So
Or maybe they just don't have enough of the teams, and they were like, "Oh, we'll just take the top team from Section 2."
So
and then 2 and 3 are 2 and 3 are going to
playing
cross
each other,
over
yeah.
too. So
So,
those matchups are really the marquee is Exeter Twin Valley.
Oh, absolutely. That's a
and
game
that'll
right
be
there.
week 9. Muhlenberg gets Solanco. Mifflin plays Garden Spot.
So where are you going to be week 9 next year, Paul?
Yeah,
Put you on
that's
the
a good
spot.
question.
Probably depends how the first 8 weeks go.
Yeah, definitely.
Good answer. Yeah. Fleetwood and Lebanon, Conestoga Valley, Cocalico. I know Cocalico was down this year, but that's still a good
They'll be back.
good matchup. Effort of Manheim Central, Warwick and E-Town. Those are the matchups between the section 2 and 3 in their crossover games. So again, the big news out of this, 5 sections, Weiser, Twin Valley flip-flop, and then these crossover games. And for Wilson, getting Central York, that's
Big time.
news.
That's big time, yeah. So the non-league schedule changes for Wilson. Governor Mifflin's continuing and most likely going to be slotted back at Game 1, which will be Friday, August 28th in 2026. Remember, Labor Day is super late next year, so everything's actually shifted a week date-wise, number-wise. It's going to look like things are starting later. It's just because Labor Day is super late. It's, I think, September 7th.
I think it is
the
7th.
latest it can be.
Wow. Okay.
So the first game will be August 28th, whereas this year it was, August 22nd or something like that. So week 0, if they're still doing that stupid thing. The first game of the year is Friday, August 28th. It will be against Governor Mifflin. It should be away. However, there is some discrepancies in scheduling that we don't know if that'll be the case. Remember, a few years ago, Wilson went to Mifflin back-to-back years. And Paul, I don't know, can we talk about the LL schedule for Wilson for the next 2-year cycle? I haven't seen it anywhere else. So
Yeah.
should we throw
I
that
did
out
not write
there?
it down. But
I have
can-
it right here.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
All
So
right. Yeah, I think I sent you the.
yeah. Well,
yeah.
I wasn't sure if we were allowed to discuss it. So
Yeah,
that's
why
right.
not?
Okay.
We
so,
break news.
So this
so
is
that's what
this
I
is
do.
a hybrid SV Sports Bulldog Hour exclusive. Wilson's 26-27 schedule with a huge asterisk, a few places.
This is just the league.
Well, this is everything that I could come up with.
Okay. But I did not have the non-league.
Well, I don't have the non-league either. I have my best guesses
Okay.
at the moment.
But the league games should be
The league games are here and are as officially unofficial as they can be at the moment. Until I get a press release from the Lancaster Lebanon League, I will call them unofficial. But this is what it's shaking out to be. Expect to be still Coatesville the scrimmage. That could change. I know that's up in the air every other year. I think it'll be Coatesville. We would be scheduled to go there. Not set in stone. Week 1, I feel very confident saying it will be Governor Mifflin. Again, I don't know if it will definitely be away. It should be, but it probably depends on how Wilson's other schedule plays out. And with that, I mean, Game 2 and Game 3 are listed as TBD, but you can see I have a few teams listed there as possibilities. And those are just teams that have not said no yet. We've reached out to them and are working on it. So some interesting teams that have been contacted and we're waiting to hear back. Council Rock South, Central Bucks West, Emmaus, and then a few 5A options, or they were 5A this last 2-year cycle. Academy Park, who I believe did Muhlenberg play them his last 2 years.
Right.
There are a couple other.
That was a crazy game this year. I hope people took the over there. I mean, it was really high. I think the game, it ended after 10 o'clock.
Oh, my goodness.
I think, was that week 9? Was that,
Yeah,
that
it was.
week 9?
It was week
Yeah,
9.
when we were leaving and getting our food, I think that game went final.
So, you're right. You're right.
Like-
You were like, that game just ended.
Right. Like, we were in the parking lot of Permani Brothers in Lancaster.
And the problem with those games is those teams all wanted it to be their home game next year, but Wilson is desperately looking for games at Gursky. So we'll see what happens. Another team to keep an eye on, I hear they're moving up to 6A next year, and it wasn't a no, would be Muhlenberg.
Really?
Just saying.
Wow.
Maybe you reach out to some of your sources and see what you can get.
Maybe I would be very interested.
Maybe a little poke and say, hey, let's give this a try.
42-37, by the way, was the score of Muhlenberg
Academy Park. So that's the first 3 weeks. But the one, Paul, that I think jumps out to us here is, you mentioned Central York's Game 9. Well, Manheim Township's the last game of the year. Man, that's a rough to finish. 9-10, Central York, Manheim Township. LL League was like, no, never mind. Manheim Township starts the section play now. So, Manheim Township has been moved to Game 4 for the next 2 years. And Wilson will actually host Manheim Township again in 2026. We know just 2 nights ago, Manheim Township came to Gursky. I'm sure Coach Evans will be thrilled to know that he's coming back again next year as well. But then it kind of is pretty common to what's happened the last 2 years. Wilson goes to Reading High. Wilson hosts Cedar Crest. We do have to then go to Hempfield again, back-to-back years doing that. Kind of the give and take with hosting Manheim Township 2 years in a row. We now have to go to Penn Manor and also go to McCaskey. That's the Week 10 game after Central York, a home game in Week 9. So at Hempfield, Game 7, at Penn Manor, Game 8, home against Central York, Game 9, and then at McCaskey to finish the season, Game 10. We'll have to get more information on why Wilson has 2 home section games and 4 road section games. But again, I'm waiting for an official press release from LL, maybe addressing some of these things. It just seems kind of weird. But again, games 2 and 3, those teams are not set in stone. It's up in the air. I don't even know if they'll be home or away. But yeah, I just thought that would be something we could throw on here as we wrap things up and get out of here, is Wilson's new 2-year cycle schedule for 2026 and 2027. Wilson's not leaving 6A, but there could be some teams joining them in 6A. And like I said, I hear Muhlenberg might be one of them.
Yeah, Muhlenberg obviously is a school district that is growing, and if you go over there, you see the construction project that's happening over there. So they're not getting any smaller. I know that, and I think during basketball season, when I spoke with Tim Moyer, their athletic director, I think he did mention, I don't remember when exactly, but he said they're basically going to be moving to the highest classification in every
across
sport.
Everything. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. So, all right. Well, I know we went a little bit long, so I want to get us out of here. Thank you, Paul, for joining us. This was a great discussion about the Manheim Township game, looking ahead to playoffs and the future of LL and Wilson football. I don't know if we'll get you back on the Bulldog Hour at all the rest of this season, but we will look forward to having you on the Joe Mays and J-Raff show to talk probably NFL action at some point here in either just before or just after the holidays.
Steelers +3. My final words for tonight.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Justin, anything you want to add?
No, just time to get right in this off week and hit the road ready for everything in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Recover, get rested, bumps and bruises, a few people dinged up.
Handle your schoolwork, because at the end of this week, you're about a quarter of the way through the school year. Which
Wild.
is hard to believe.
Absolutely wild. But, all right. So for Paul, for Justin, that's it for this episode of the Bulldog Hour. We'll be back in 1 week. Until next time, remember, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.